When I sat in the classroom getting my real estate license, because that's what we used to do back in the day, the teacher said, look around this room, and in 2 years' time, there's only going to be 2 of you left in this business. And I'm like, what am I signing up for? Like, if the failure rate is so high, I got to figure out something to generate leads and opportunities. So that's really where, my mind of marketing started.
Justin, I am thrilled to sit down and talk with you about real estate marketing and just marketing in general, because I think that you are so well known throughout the industry for building one of the most amazing businesses, not only here in Canada, but around the globe with your team and the business that you've built. But I think what a lot of people don't know is some of the marketing decisions you've made that have contributed to that success. So do you consider yourself a marketer?
A little bit. I mean, it's clearly something that I dabble in, and something that I really like to learn and study, and always kind of test and see what works and what doesn't work. And, again, being in this business from the very beginning, when I got into the business, I knew that I needed to do marketing in order to generate opportunities. When I sat in the classroom getting my real estate license, because that's what we used to do back in the day, the teacher said, look around this room, and in 2 years' time, there's only going to be 2 of you left in this business. And I'm like, what am I signing up for? Like, if the failure rate is so high, I got to figure out something to generate leads and opportunities. So that's really where my mind of marketing started.
Oh, interesting. So, I became aware of you many years ago, kind of here in the Canadian market, and particularly in Calgary, as you were sort of coming on the scene and building your business. And you made a big splash with Calgary.com. Tell us that story. How did that come about for you to get that URL, and why did you decide to sort of go all in on that URL?
I've had an obsession with online marketing since the very beginning. And, again, investing into search engine optimization, getting websites to rank high in the search engine, because there's always some great benefits to that when it comes to lead generation. And I always looked for domain names that could be available for me to purchase, acquire, and then develop them to become assets for the business. And I kept landing on this one web page. There was absolutely nothing on it. It was just a white web page, not a single word or image on it. And that was Calgary.com. And I'm sitting there thinking, what a waste of a domain.
And somebody owned it at that point.
Somebody owned it. It was actually Yellow Pages that owned it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was able to connect with the legal department at the Yellow Pages. And, I decided to make him an offer. So I made him one offer. I think it was like $250,000. And they said, no, not for sale. Made him another offer of $300,000. And I'm like, it's not necessarily comfortable. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And what year was this?
So this is probably in and around 2014-ish.
2014. So $300,000 for a URL is a lot of money.
And then they turned that down as well. So then I recouped, and I'm like, well, I'm not giving up. I really wanted it. So then I made them an offer of $500,000. And again, they declined. I said, it's not for sale. So then I recouped again, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go all in on this one here. And I made them an offer of $750,000. And again, they declined, and I'm not going to lie, I had a little bit of a relief because I was like, what am I doing here? But then kind of a funny story is I actually am a big believer in manifestation and vision boards and that kind of stuff. And I do my vision boards every single year. And I basically just wrote on a piece of paper, owncalgary.com. And then I stuck it in the top corner underneath the pin that I had sticking up my billboard, or not my billboard, my vision board. And I kept that on there for 4 years. And once a year-ish, I would kind of check in. I'm like, hey, has your position ever changed? And then it went a couple of years.
It's still a blank URL.
Still a blank URL. Like, I'm like, Yellow Pages, come on. Like, you guys are sitting on something that's pretty special here. If you look at Toronto.com, owned by the Toronto Star. Boston.com, owned by the Boston Globe. Like, a lot of potential for it. So then, about 4 years later, I get an email from the Yellow Pages. And they're like, hey, Justin, we're wondering if you're still interested in the domain, Calgary.com. I just kind of look over my shoulder at my vision board. I'm like, here we go.
Here we go.
Right. And they're like, "That's your last offer stand?" I'm like, clearly not, because now the tables have turned. And we were actually able to come to an agreement. That was on a Wednesday, come to an agreement on price Friday. They sent over the agreement on Monday. I got the agreement at 4:00, signed it, wired the money by 4:30 on Monday, and by Tuesday at noon, I had ownership of the domain.
Wow.
Right. And to me, I mean, again, when it comes to online marketing, I also believe in location. Mm-hmm. You know, if you have a good vanity domain, and I believe that for the Calgary market, there's no better domain than that.
It's no better than Calgary.com. How did you think about the strategy versus like location versus your name, your personal name and branding around that?
You see, like, so I have multiple websites in my marketplace, and this is, again, kind of part of my obsession with building websites. I've actually had websites that disappeared from rankings because I had the wrong company doing the SEO. They're doing more of a gray hat / black hat SEO practices. And when you Googled an algorithm update, that website disappeared. And that's not a good feeling, especially when it generates 30 to 40 leads a day organically. And I then decided to diversify my website assets. You know, I have justinhavre.com as my branded website, and I run calgaryhomes.ca, which is a website that ranks incredibly well. It's kind of like my own Zillow machine in the marketplace. You know, the average ranking is about 2 or 3 for every major keywords, or actually for thousands of keywords in the marketplace. So I decided to kind of diversify my assets for different domain names and then build them up. Nobody's going to buy justinhavre.com. Somebody might buy Calgary.com down the road, right? And, you know, to me, they become an asset to the company to provide leads and opportunities, you know, for the agents. And, you know, with that domain having sit dormant for so many years, it has taken a lot of time and effort to, you know, build that authority back in on that domain. And it's starting to get some good traction right now.
It is. I think for anyone in a location-dependent business like we are in real estate, that combination of personal brand name and location-dependent branding is often overlooked. And I think that's a brilliant strategy that you executed.
Yeah, and it's, you know, again, I've also acquired different geo domains as well. I used to at one point own reddeer.com as well. Ended up flipping that, made some good money on that. It's actually a software company out of the UK that ended up buying it.
Oh, interesting. Not just the stopping point in between Calgary and Edmonton anymore, huh?
Yeah. So then I thought it was kind of unique that, you know, they had an interest in that domain. I was actually thinking about developing a website for the Red Deer market at the time. And then I've also acquired like okotoks.com, which is a, you know, little city outside of Calgary, as well as chestermere.com as well. So a little bit of a geo domain portfolio in and around there. But I've always dabbled in the domain game and having a little bit of fun here and there. I had, you know, lahomes.com at one point as well.
Did you? I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah. How
many domains do you own right now?
I think I'm down to a little over 400 right now.
I'm down to a little over 400.
There's like 300 or 400 that I may have just...
And do you think that ship has sailed?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting now, obviously, you know, what does the future look like when it comes to websites and so forth, especially with, you know, the introduction of AI and how many people are now going to steer towards AI for, you know, ChatGPT to do the search for them. You know, there's clearly going to be a shift in consumer behavior, but I still believe that you need to have a presence. Google is too big to go away anytime soon, and I think they will pivot and adapt. You know, again, even for paid traffic, for instance, these guys they're going to be fighting for the ad spend.
Yes. Yeah, they are. I think that, I think thinking strategically about domains that you own or domains that you may have a use for is an important part of business at every stage, even today with AI and everything that's happening.
100%.
Especially your personal name.
Yeah.
Like I always say to people, like, if you have children, like go buy your children's domains.
Yeah.
Just go buy your like cousins, nieces, nephews, like buy them all. Just own your name.
Yeah. And it's, and again, you never know when you'll use them. I mean, for myself, having hundreds of domains that I don't use, this the odd time I get an inquiry where somebody wants to buy it or whatnot. And, some people may try to offer $15 for a domain. I'm like, no, I'd rather keep it. Just to kind of even like, I look at it also from a strategic point of like, in my market, I don't want competitors to kind of, it's competition, right? And I mean, not that a domain name in itself will have a lot of value when it comes to SEO, but some domains can be a big brand value as well. And that's one of the, the possibilities with Calgary.com. We're not pushing it too much as an entity of the Justin Havre real estate team, but it is something that we may look at down the road. Primarily now we still focus on, Justin Havre as, the brand in the marketplace.
So let's jump off of that to what I think is another brilliant marketing strategy that you executed more recently, which is your Billboard and airport takeover campaign. So tell us a little bit about that campaign.
Yeah, it's definitely a campaign that pings the introvert in me when I go to the airport. That's for sure.
I was passing through the Calgary airport and like I took a selfie like with you like behind me on the big like billboards there. So how did that idea come about? And what like just tell us that story.
Yeah, so in 2013, because I'd been primarily focused on websites and that had, again, brought a lot of success to the team already, I decided to diversify my marketing and go a little bit more traditional to start building a brand. I added TV, radio, and then I also added billboards, having had, people like Mark Spain, Gary Ashton, Chris Lindahl to also collaborate with over the years as well, to really kind of understand some of the strategies that they have used for, outdoor media. But also with Calgary going through some pretty tough economic challenges from 2015 to 2022. That's kind of when the COVID market started kicking gear for Calgary. We were a little late because the energy prices were so suppressed. And, I thought, okay, well, people that travel have money in most cases, right? And for us to kind of attract buyers and sellers, specifically sellers, we thought that it would be a good opportunity to then go after the airport. Now, initially, the first go around at the airport, we had the smaller iconic billboards because Patterson, they call the two billboards at the airport that they have on the outside iconic marketing pieces in their eyes. So we got the one over the parkade and, it's kind of a funny story here too, because the airport was going through a renovation at the time and trying to figure out their identity. And the president of the airport, this is a story that I've been told, was walking the property with a advertising consultant or brand consultant from Europe. And they're walking the grounds and the guy asked the president of the airport at the time, like, hey, is your airport for sale?
Because they saw you.
Because they saw the billboard that we had there. And the guy's like, no. He goes, well, sure, it looks like. So he wasn't a fan of that billboard. So they didn't renew our campaign.
Oh, goodness.
So, I said, that's too bad because we never got any phone calls about the airport with our advertising. Right. So, again, I have a really good relationship with Patterson. And, again, I said, if anything ever comes up again, please keep us in mind. And, here last year, we got a phone call and say, hey, Lexus, who used to have that billboard, they're going to pass on it. And the airport now is under a different leadership as well. And they thought that it could be a good opportunity for us to revisit that partnership.
How many billboards? Like it seemed like walking through the airport, it was everywhere.
So the airport, it was airport takeover, and we're basically all over the inside of both terminals, arrivals and departures. And then we have the big billboard on the outside, which is 80 by 60 feet. And, It's a little awkward to have your picture that big. I'm not going to lie.
How often do you hear from people traveling through the airport like me that are like, there you are?
You know what? It is definitely a conversation piece, and that is what you want when it comes to any advertising campaign. It's like the more people talk, good or positive, you know that it's having an impact.
Yes.
And, again, it's sometimes, I can even be down in Florida when we were at eXp Con where somebody's like, hey, you're Justin. I'm like, this is weird. Like, I'm so far from home. But, again, it is clearly over the years we have been able to build a big brand. And again, it is, being a realtor, we got to build a personal brand. And for myself, it's, my commitment to the agents on my team to continue to build the most trusted brand in the marketplace that instills trust where there's minimal sales language required by the agents to get business. And when they can go into a listing appointment and, they just close the laptop, say, I don't see a presentation, just where do I sign?
Right.
That to me is what a brand is.
Yeah, that is the power of a brand. And you've just been so strategic in thinking about these moves that it's just been fascinating to watch. So I'm curious, like, what are you thinking about next?
Oh, there's always something going on between these temples. Again, it's now we're getting a lot into lead attribution, seeing, again, what's working, what's not, so that we can be even smarter with, our advertising spend and really double down on the things that we know are working and perhaps cut things that aren't working. I think as an industry, we tend to, be like a herd of cows. Somebody goes over to this field and is like, this is the latest and greatest thing. Then everybody goes over there and then that stops working because we move around like that. But I think it's also important for us to, like, when you do any sort of marketing, you got to really put in the time. Then you got to test it and you got to look at the data. You got to do some A/B testing because sometimes it can be the wrong message as well. And you can make small little tweaks to kind of enhance whatever campaign that you're doing. And, again, we've been diving a lot into our database here in the last year, and we continue to do so because, again, there's a lot of gold in the old, so to say. And a lot of people get really caught up in chasing the new leads. And, we looked at some data within our organization. We're like, well, a lead stays in our system for a certain timeline before they typically transact. And there's a lot of untapped opportunities in there.
There is.
And, even what I'm going to be speaking on here at eXpCon is also about lead conversion. I've been part of generating over 450,000 leads in my career. And the one thing that I'll say, on a simple thing is that less is more. I see a lot of agents that are always like, I want more and more leads. And that just means that there's going to be more opportunities that are just going to fall through the cracks. And, especially when agents are paying big money for some of these opportunities, they can actually cut down on their ad spend. They just got to do more work and go deeper with what they have.
Yes.
Everybody's chasing those shiny objects right now.
Chasing the shiny objects. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to share the story. I think the takeaway from the Calgary.com story is really ask the question, right? Anything might be for sale. And I love the location and personal name brand combination. I think that is a critical strategy. And then right up to the airport takeover story of pushing those boundaries. And yeah, nobody did it before, but why not, right? And monitoring the results of that along the way and testing.
Yeah, and I think it's, again, like sometimes you got to take risks. And, the way I challenge myself is to put myself out there. And, as an introvert, I'm sure there's many people that even watch this that can relate to being an introvert or being uncomfortable seeing your own photo. I'm no different. But at the same time, my commitment to the people that I have an honor and privilege to, lead, it is also my challenge to myself to push myself out of my comfort zones. And, in order to provide more and more opportunities and to build a brand.
It is. And that's what I call the X factor, right? And that's why we talk about X factor marketing. That special thing we all have is our brand, right? It's our personality. And it's just been really great getting to spend this time with you. Thanks for sharing these stories. And I'm sure we've inspired some people who are listening to think a little bit differently about what they do with their brand in their local market. So really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.